there was a wild thing floated by a Trump, the people around Trump. He surrounds himself with people who kind of do policy, since he doesn't really do policy. He does speeches and, bumper sticker politics, So let me just share this with you. You might find it interesting.
The Mark Thompson Show.
The thing that's been floated by Christopher Miller, Christopher Miller was the guy who was heading up the Pentagon in the last part of Donald Trump's administration. He'd gotten rid of Mark Esper. Esper was the former Secretary of Defense. He was I want to say he was a Raytheon executive prior. A lot of these guys who end up Secretary of Defense are either former defense CEOs, like, defense contractor CEOs like Mark Esper, or they're going to be CEOs because they leave the Pentagon and then they get right into the lobby game, and in running some company related to defense. In any case, Christopher Miller, he led the Pentagon during the final days of Trump's tenure. And he said, as part of Project 2025, that's the reshaping of the U.S. government. And this has been talked about, and it is a document that you can look at. It's from the Heritage Foundation. In fact, John Rothman, I think last time he visited with us, talked about the fact that he'd do a whole segment with us on that, which I really would like to do. So, John, if you're listening, we'll follow up on that. But the idea is that he might bring back the draft. So Donald Trump and those around him, again, this is out of the mind of Christopher Miller, might bring back some kind of mandatory national service requirement. Now, you might say, that's not a bad idea, some kind of national service. A lot of countries have it. But the draft might really be something distinctly different than mandatory national service.
Are we going to war? I mean, are we going to attack someone? What's happening?
Well, the idea would be to have high school kids take aptitude tests to, as he says, plug knowledge gaps as we size up competitors like China and devise plans for possible conflicts with a range of foreign adversaries. I mean, again, when you're Christopher Miller and you're oriented toward the military, you have a hammer and everything in the world looks like a nail. And you need more in the way of military service to help hammer in those nails. He wants to grant military recruiters greater access to secondary schools. And he's proposed halting the use of the Defense Department's electronic medical records platform. He says that leads to unnecessary delays. He essentially is saying you can't get a medical deferment to get out of it. That might be another way to look at it. So this is radical. It's
scary.
It's scary. It's, well, also the way that Donald Trump had talked about the military and wanting to turn them on the streets of Washington and domestically to handle domestic protests. This sort of serves that master. This is a truly scary way in which, in that Project 2025 document, there's another detail that I suspect Americans would not be cool with. Would the draft include women?
Probably. Why wouldn't it? I mean,
yeah, it doesn't. I don't see anything that would accept women from it all. But, and the other thing you have to know is this is something, and Christopher Miller makes this statement in this context, this is something that exists in the context of the military in their recruitment goals falling short. In other words, they're not getting enough people into the military right now to meet their recruitment goals. So they're about 41,000 short of where they want to be. And so it's in that context that this sort of thing is being discussed. But wow, if you got, if this could catch some buzz, it might remind you as a voter that these are the sorts of reforms that a new Trump administration might actually follow through on. In other words, it's not a politically positive thing to be advocating for a draft. So, and the guy who... I just think
about mothers, women in general. Like, first of all, you take away our rights. So we have a real good reason to go vote now, right? Then you're going to send our kids into the military. Okay, you just doubled down. Here come all the moms to the polls, right?
Yeah, I mean, if the row back of Roe wasn't enough to get you out, there it is. Lindsey Graham said that he'd take no option off the table. Recruiters need more leeway to work in the country's public schools to try to address the shortfalls in the military, and that would include compulsory service. J.D. Vance, the senator from Ohio that sort of was talked about, maybe still as a potential running mate for Trump, said that he sees a clear need for boosting participation. I like the idea of national service, he said, and I'm not talking about it in wartime. More Americans need to put, quote, some skin in the game. So Rob Hood, a former Trump official in the Defense Department, said that he thinks that 18 to 20-year-olds would benefit from gaining, quote, a better appreciation for how great this country is. Anyway, it's big, and it could happen. You know, the draft was ended by Richard Nixon, and it ended a couple of years before the Vietnam War ended. It was in 1973. So it's interesting that a prospective Republican president would potentially reintroduce the draft. John Watson says a lot of immigrants like to volunteer for the service if they're given citizenship. It's true, and it's used as an inducement, I think, on some level as well, to get them to serve. Anyway, that's those are a few of the latest developments in and around the Trump campaign and the buzz in politics. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.